Hello and welcome to Rendy Reviews, where I, Rendy Jones, review the latest in film and television. Today, we'll be reviewing The French Dispatch, the latest from everyone's favorite symmetrical framing, tonally quirky, and one-of-a-kind storyteller, Wes Anderson. The film stars nearly everyone that he's ever worked with in his entire life and then some. The film is slated to release on October 22nd, 2021, in theaters everywhere. On the occasion of the death of its beloved Kansas-born editor, Howitzer Jr., the staff of the French Dispatch, a widely circulated American magazine based in a French city, convenes to write his obituary. Memories of Howitzer flow into the creation of 4 stories, a travelogue of the seediest sections of the city itself, from the cycling reporter, the concrete masterpiece about a criminally insane painter, his guard and muse, and his ravenous dealers, a chronicle of love and death on the barricade at the height of student revolt, and the private dining room of the police commissioner, a suspenseful tale of drugs, kidnapping, and fine dining. We've been waiting so damn long for The French Dispatch that in 2020, I would have rewatched the first trailer on a routine basis as motivation to live for. With this new Wes Anderson joint, the indie darling of most cinephiles takes to a new angle of storytelling by delivering a bold new format he hasn't tackled before. Anthology! The film is composed of a series of shorts taken from the words of 4 journalists who work at a Kansas-born magazine based in a French town. It's like their version of The New Yorker. Upon the death of the team's editor-in-chief, played by Bill Murray, the best writers from the magazine recollect their memories of him and the singular best article that impacted the outlet. Throughout his filmmaking career, Wes Anderson has found ways to exude his trademark style while applying new techniques to his enormous skill set. With The French Dispatch, he compiles every known Andersonism to date and drops it into this film like a meteor. Do not, and I repeat not, let this be your first Wes Anderson movie, because if you ain't in on his style or his premise, you'll be either left in the dust or paralyzed by the overwhelming caveat of styles executed on screen. This isn't your average everyday Wes Anderson, this is advanced Wes Anderson. Even I was overwhelmed while watching this film because it's the Wes Andersoniest Wes Anderson movie to ever Wes Anderson. And that's a lot for a movie that's composed of various short stories. If I were to touch upon the wide array of techniques he applied in this movie, we'd be here from dusk till dawn. But what I will do is express what I loved most. If you know me, you know I'm an animation nerd, and some of my favorite Wes Anderson stuff is his stop-motion animated features, with my favorite of his entire filmography being The Fantastic Mr. Fox. As far as style goes, the film combines the likes of his live action and stop motion in areas that factored into my admiration and laughter. Due to this feature including 3 extensive vignettes that range in location, Anderson makes sure each one pops, doesn't step over the others' toes, and makes you unsure which sets or props are real or of handcrafted design. The blending of stop motion and live action is a testament of how Anderson takes everything from his past to deliver a visual feast. The film's climax involves a high-scaled and comedic car chase that is completely 2D animated. I mean, you don't get more Anderson than that, man. There's so much attention to detail within each story and how they're presented from a visual standpoint. They vary in storytelling, even with the lesser segments, but boy is it visually astounding to witness. If you're not a fan of Wes Anderson's works, then first off, what are you doing here? This movie sure ain't gonna convert ya. That being said, it will leave you in admiration of his craft and his ability to make 3 separate stories as distinct as they can be from a visual standpoint. As far as casting goes, The French Dispatch is Anderson's equivalent to Super Smash Bros. 4, for it features many veteran actors he's collaborated with on previous projects making their grand and expected return, such as Bill Murray, Owen Wilson, Adrien Brody, Frances McDormand, and Ed Norton. There are also some welcome newcomers such as Timothée Chalamet, Seydoux, Benicio del Toro, and to me, the film's MVP, Jeffrey Wright. Everyone is clearly in on the fun and brings out the best of Anderson's tonal flair in both deadpan delivery and comedic timing. But the best elements performance-wise comes from the roulette of newcomers who entered this cinematic universe. My favorite short of the 3 is the concrete masterpiece, which features Del Toro and Seydoux as a prisoner artist and his lover/muse/guard who become famous within the art world thanks to a rich and tax-evading art dealer. It's the most fluent story of the 3, and Del Toro and Seydoux are absolutely masterful in their roles as well-written individuals and lovers. When I say that Seydoux and Benicio del Toro had more chemistry in the span of 25 minutes or so than she had with Daniel Craig in the last 2 Bond movies, you know it's strong. Then you have Jeffrey Wright, who is clearly doing his best James Baldwin impression, and he's incredible. From his sophisticated and professionally articulate vernacular to his deep octave and expressive mannerisms, he feels like a character from an entirely different movie, but never one who felt completely out of place. His presence made me fully understand Anderson's notion of delivering a passionate love letter to the heyday of American journalism with one of the best writers who have ever penned a piece in a magazine. Also, James Baldwin was the only American author that I actually knew and recognized based upon general knowledge. That being said, Wright is absolutely incredible alongside his dialogue and his arc within the story he's set in. I adore the general basis of The French Dispatch. I love the concept and admire the execution from a stylistic standpoint. Still, this film just wasn't for me. It's a good Wes Anderson movie that will absolutely appeal to his fans. I am a Wes Anderson fan myself. I just wasn't completely there for the full ride, or I guess 1/3 of his stories. As much as I love Anderson's work, for his humor is 100% my shit, there were massive pacing issues in some of the stories that prevented me from being completely on board. The film made me feel like Goldilocks at times because one story felt like it was too slow, one went too fast, and one was just right. The first story, The Concrete Masterpiece, the one that was just right to me. Meanwhile, Revisions to a Manifesto and The Private Dining Room of the Police Commissioner were too slow and too fast respectively. Okay, I might be nitpicking because I adore Wright's performance so much and I could have lived in the private dining room of the police commissioner forever. But I wasn't keen on Revisions to a Manifesto at all, and it's mostly due to its setup. As aforementioned, it's fantastically constructed, visually gorgeous, and utilizes certain storytelling techniques with flashbacks to make it stand out. It's the writing that didn't come together. In Manifesto, you follow reporter Lucinda Kremens, played by Frances McDormand, who is profiling a leader of a student revolt, played by Timothée Chalamet, and helps with his manifesto. Due to becoming infatuated with her subject and sleeping with him, she gets into crossfire. During that story, the lines begin to blur as to what Anderson is trying to achieve. The script goes on endless tangents that are loose and at times feel unnecessary to the story at hand. It tries too hard to give a distinct personality to characters who, at the end of the day, are attuned to his quirky world. We gotta move past the female journalist sleeping with their subject trope because it's both redundant and ill-conceived. I get that he plays it for humor, but in the grand scheme of films that depict women in journalism, it's on the same level of rote as the following media. Richard Jewell, Sharp Objects, Trainwreck, Never Been Kissed, Gilmore Girls, House of Cards, Absence of Malice, and The First Iron Man. Do you see how long this list is? If you're going to be a love letter to journalism unlike anything that's ever been done before, that also means you have to break the mold of how people, primarily women, in the film are depicted in media. Anderson doesn't accomplish this. The film peaks so heavily at the end of the first story that, as far as tone goes, everything after ends up being the same, which is so much Anderson that the state of overwhelming emotions turns into a slight frustration. I appreciate what Anderson was attempting to do, and there are many positives in The French Dispatch to outweigh the negative, for it bodes as a new frontier for the prolific filmmaker. But overall, it's mid-tier Anderson to me. I'd watch 2/3 of this movie, especially the first part and some of the last story, but overall, meh. And with that, I'd be giving The French Dispatch a 3 out of 5. Now, if someone wants a non-New Yorker magazine to kiss ass to, let's make an anthology love letter movie based on Nickelodeon magazine or Nintendo Power. Yeah, those would be nice. If you're watching this video post or prior to the film's release, let me know what you think. Do you agree or disagree with my takes? Leave a comment in the comment section below. And hey, while you're here, be sure to like the video and subscribe to our channel. Or head on over to RendyReviews.com where you can find the written review of this film along with hundreds of more reviews. And hey, subscribe to our Patreon, where you can get early access to written reviews, video reviews, and a bunch of other exclusive content that you don't want to miss. Thanks for watching, I'm Rendy Jones, and I'll see y'all next time.